In reality, as we know it, where heartfelt connections are frequently seen as a definitive satisfaction, it's striking to find that probably the most insightful what's more, effective individuals decide to stay single. They aren't pausing for the ideal accomplice, rather, they found a significant truth that lines up with the emotionless way of thinking. Genuine happiness comes from the inside. This strong acknowledgement enables them to completely live freely and according to their own preferences today. We dig into the reasons behind this decision, investigating how Stoicism's standards of independence, what's more, internal harmony guide their lives. Go along with me as we reveal the excellencies of singlehood, not as a status in any case, as a purposeful way to self-improvement. What's more, satisfaction assuming that you esteem the bits of knowledge furthermore. Discussions we're sharing here, a basic free blessing I could ask from you is to stir things up around town button also. If it's not too much trouble, stay with us all through the video without skipping, as each part holds a piece of the riddle to understanding this significant approach to everyday life. First up, we should discuss why numerous splendid individuals decide to stay single since they hold strikingly elevated requirements for themselves furthermore. For those they should seriously mull over as accomplices. It's not just about looking for somebody who ticks off an agenda of characteristics, all things being equal. It's tied in with tracking down an individual who reverberates on a more profound level, somebody who epitomizes the fundamental beliefs of emotionlessness, straightforwardness, uprightness, and reasonableness. These are not simply popular expressions. They are the points of support whereupon they fabricate their lives. What's more, likewise, any connections they decide to go into for the people who line up with emotionless standards. Each relationship should be something other than friendship. It ought to be an organization that improves life instead of convolutes. They trust in developing connections that encourage both individual, what's more, aggregate development, sustaining a bond that upholds shared accomplishments. What's more, self-improvement. This implies searching for accomplices who are not just viable in preferences or then again side interests in any case, who share a significant philosophical arrangement where the two people totally agree on the main thing throughout everyday life. In this light-making do with less isn't a choice. There's actually no need to focus on requesting flawlessness from an accomplice, but instead about not splitting the difference on the fundamental viewpoints of one's way of thinking of life. Emotionlessness educates that peacefulness and righteousness are the most noteworthy products. Subsequently, a likely accomplice should contribute emphatically to these finishes instead of cheapen them. The elevated expectations being referred to are accordingly about keeping up with one's serenity also. Seeking after righteousness reliably, this approach could limit the field in any case. It additionally implies that any relationship framed is logical to be serious areas of strength for unimaginably advancing. Having elevated expectations as per unemotional idea is tied in with understanding that great connections ought to be easy in their intricacies. What's more, enhancing in their straightforwardness and unemotional looks for an accomplice who gets it, that life's preliminaries are handled better with a common ethos that values lucidity, moral living, and straightforwardness. They want an accomplice who sees a relationship not as a simple satisfaction of individual or then again cultural assumptions. In any case, as a joint endeavor towards a more significant upright life for the individuals who profoundly associate with emotionless qualities, freedom in life implies having the opportunity to decide in light of one's own judgment. Also, standards without expecting to think twice about for another's longings or, on the other hand, assumptions. It's tied in with keeping up with control over one's own life also, guaranteeing that each decision lines up with one's moral. What's more, philosophical principles. This level of independence permits them to seek after their actual reason and interests without interruption or deviation, which is the reason a close connection could appear to be restricting as opposed to freeing in a world where heartfelt ensnarements frequently request splits the difference also. Changes keeping up with one's autonomy streak can challenge the individuals who esteem their autonomy profoundly. Treasure the capacity to seek after their desires. Also, life objectives uninhibited. They flourish with the opportunity to investigate make and develop separately for Stoics. The best state is one where they are independent also. Their bliss isn't subject to someone else. This doesn't stem from a self-centered want to try not to share. Life's excursion, rather, it's about a more profound comprehension that genuine satisfaction comes from the inside, not from outer sources. Besides, this freedom isn't tied in with dismissing the idea of connections through and through. In any case, about focusing on self-improvement and internal harmony over cultural assumptions, Stoics accept in shaping connections that don't decrease their opportunity, but instead regard what's more, improve their autonomy. This implies that any likely relationship should fulfill the high guideline of not exclusively being cherishing and strong, yet in addition of permitting the two people to stay valid to their free qualities by focusing on autonomy. They're not simply keeping away from the potential pitfalls of close connections. They're effectively picking a way that guarantees their capacity to carry on with life according to their own preferences. This approach ensures that they can devote themselves completely to their own, what's more, philosophical pursuits, prompting a more extravagant, really satisfying life that is valid to the emotionless ideal of independence. Furthermore, individual respectability. This significant level of freedom is seen not as a boundary to closeness, however, as the very establishment whereupon a genuinely steady, also advancing relationship might actually be constructed should the right accomplice go along. This isn't about skepticism or, on the other hand, a negative point of view toward affection. Rather, it's a painstakingly viewed as viewpoint molded by perception. Also, individual experience, well established in apathetic insight apathy, instructs us to move toward existence with a reasonable looked-at view, empowering us to see things as they are not, as we wish them to be. This way of thinking advances close to home flexibility furthermore, a down-to-earth approach to life's difficulties, counting connections for the people who line up with emotionless standards. There's many times a sharp mindfulness of the intricacies, also possible traps that accompany close connections. They have noticed some of the time firsthand the profound disturbance clashes, and surprisingly, the bafflement that can emerge from jumbles in assumptions, values, or life objectives. Such perceptions lead them to address whether the conventional relationship model is as satisfying or fundamental as society frequently depicts it. To be additionally, aloofness shows the significance of self-satisfaction furthermore, discovering a sense of harmony inside oneself as opposed to looking for it in outer connections or, then again, others. This philosophical methodology encourages an inclination for keeping up with one's personal balance and individual harmony, which can be essentially more earnestly to support in the dynamic give and take of an organization for the individuals who have glaring misgivings of relationship elements. The potential for close-to-home aggravation is frequently seen as a gamble not worth taking, particularly assuming that they feel total what's more, happy in their isolation. This wariness too reaches out to the adequacy of connections in gathering profound individual furthermore. Philosophical necessities, Stoics frequently look for a degree of understanding. What's more, shared regard that goes past superficial attractions, or on the other hand, normal interests. They search for associations that are really enhancing, also mentally animating with a solid establishment in shared values. What's more, moral living. The trouble in tracking down such an organization, joined with an inclination for close-to-home strength, makes numerous Stoics wary about going into connections that could think twice about quietness for the individuals who exemplify these ways of life. Whether they are minimalists, wanderers, explorers, or on the other hand, profoundly dedicated to uncommon creative or helpful ventures, living an unconventional life isn't simply an inclination in any case. A calling emotionlessness with its accentuation on living as per nature furthermore, zeroing in on what one has some control over incredibly impacts their life decisions for these people. Emotionlessness isn't simply theory, it's a down-to-earth manual for living. It instructs the significance of self-control, what's more, control over one's own reactions to outside conditions. This adjusts wonderfully with ways of life that require a critical level of freedom. Furthermore, confidence, for instance, Think about the moderate who tracks down profound bliss and effortlessness. What's more, the fundamental apathy upholds this by instructing that joy comes not from outside belongings in any case, from carrying on with a daily existence that is in agreement with one's own excellencies. What's more, values likewise the people who pick a traveling life track down, reverberation with Stoicism's lessons about flexibility. Furthermore, the transient nature of outer circumstances, they travel through the world making homes any place they go, which requires a significant capacity to change also. Track down happiness, notwithstanding spot or solace characteristics that emotionlessness upgrades by esteeming adaptability and strength. These remarkable ways of life frequently require a degree of responsibility. Also, individual conviction that can be difficult to accommodate with the trade-offs intrinsic in heartfelt connections. Connections commonly include fitting two coexistences, which can mean penances also. Changes that might weaken or struggle with the flighty ways these people have picked the indifferent quest for individual moral uprightness. Also, the longing to genuinely live can in this way make connections appear to be prohibitive, or on the other hand, even in opposition to their own. What's more, philosophical objectives also. Apathy shows the worth of individual independence. What's more, the quest for individual goodness, which can additionally build up the choice to stay single for somebody profoundly dedicated to a way that is more uncommon. The autonomy to settle on decisions that adjust impeccably with their indifferent qualities is vital. It isn't so much that these people are against sharing their lives. Maybe their life decisions request such a serious level of individual uprightness also. Arrangement that tracking down a viable accomplice who not just comprehends yet additionally truly shares these qualities can astoundingly challenge for the overwhelming majority splendid personalities. Their expert interests aren't simply occupations, they are reasons for living that request a huge piece of their energy, concentration, and time. This profound obligation to vocation is many times affected by apathetic way of thinking which values discipline, reason also. The quest for greatness in one's picked field apathy instructs the significance of living as per one's temperament, which for certain means following a way well established in their expert desires, whether they are business visionaries endeavoring to send off a startup, scholastics committed to pivotal examination, or on the other hand, craftsmen submerged in consummating their specialty. The determined pursuit of expert greatness is a vital part of their personality. What's more, life fulfillment. This serious concentration lines up with the emotionless ideal of righteousness. Furthermore, greatness in all undertakings. In such cases, the requests of a high-flying vocation can frequently leave little room for keeping a close connection, the significant investment expected to fabricate. Furthermore, support a fruitful vocation can struggle with the responsibilities required to sustain a relationship for Stoics who are educated to move toward life with reasonableness. Also, common sense, the choice to stay single, can be an essential decision that permits them to zero in on their profession without the interruption or, on the other hand, inner commotion that connections can once in a while bring. Besides, aloofness advances the possibility of independence also. Individual satisfaction, which can be especially interesting to those who are profoundly profession arranged for them. Satisfaction comes from accomplishing their expert objectives. Furthermore, living up to their own norms of achievement as opposed to looking for satisfaction through connections. This isn't to say that they evade human association, yet rather that they track down their most profound fulfillment in achievements that advance their expert life. In addition, the apathetic practice of keeping outside once insignificant builds up the choice to focus on vocation over private connections. Apathy instructs that we ought to zero in on whatever is possible, control our own decisions. Reactions also, obligation to our objectives for those determined via vocation yearnings. Keeping up with control over their expert fate is principle. What's more, connections can at times present a degree of unconventionality that is in conflict with their life's concentration. Numerous people decide to remain single since they esteem the opportunity to deal with their funds without the intricacies that frequently accompany interlacing them in a relationship. This inclination for monetary freedom isn't just about cash. It's tied in with keeping a sense of self-assurance furthermore. Individual power topics that are focal to emotionless way of thinking aloofness trains us to esteem independence. Also, the capacity to live as per our own standards. Also, this expands into the domain of monetary administration. For Stoics, the capacity to control one's monetary fate is vital. It's not just about abundance. Gathering, be that as it may, about the opportunity to simply decide that line up with one's qualities furthermore. Life objectives without settling for less monetary independence permits people to simply decide that are best for their self-improvement. What's more, improvement as opposed to requiring to oblige or think twice about for the purpose of an accomplice's monetary propensities or objectives. In addition, monetary autonomy is frequently seen as a type of independence, which apathy respects the emotionless endeavors for an inward condition of serenity. Also, opportunity which can be all the more promptly accomplished at the point when one isn't monetarily subject to or, on the other hand, committed to another. This autonomy is especially engaging to the individuals who have seen or, on the other hand, insight the strains that monetary conflicts can put on connections. The capacity to make do one's funds freely limits likely struggles also. Upgrades one's ability to carry on with a life that is liberated from the trouble. What's more, disturbances that monetary conflicts can cause. Moreover, for those committed to following an emotionless way, monetary independence upholds the quest for ethicalness. In its broadest sense, it permits them to designate assets in ways that encourage their moral. What's more, philosophical objectives, whether that is effective money management in self-improvement, adding to causes they esteem, or on the other hand, basically guaranteeing a way of life that mirrors their most profound feelings about what is great and significant, deciding to keep up with monetary autonomy. Likewise mirrors a common sense furthermore, normal methodology to life's vulnerabilities. Stoics are educated to plan furthermore, be strong against unanticipated changes furthermore. Keeping up with control over their funds is a pivotal piece of this readiness. It's tied in with making a safe base from which they can seek after their objectives with certainty, without the need to arrange or counsel in this manner, protecting their opportunity of activity for the people who resound with unemotional goals. There's an acknowledgement that fellowships and family bonds can extraordinarily satisfy these connections, offer security, unwavering quality, and a profundity of understanding, frequently untethered to the intricacies also. Variances of heartfelt love, non-romantic connections, consider a sort of shared regard. What's more, appreciation that depends on shared values, scholarly agreement also, individual arrangement characteristics that Stoics respect in the domain of aloofness. The accentuation is frequently on creating oneself also, endeavoring toward individual excellence. Companions who support this excursion aren't simply buddies. They are individual voyagers on the way of self-awareness. These connections can offer bits of knowledge and difficulties that push one towards more prominent mindfulness also, improvement which is more adjusted with the emotionless objective of carrying on with a prudent life. This powerful encourages a sense of local area and backing without the conditions that can some of the time go with close connections. Also, Stoics esteem the quietness that comes from a well-requested life. What's more, dispassionate connections frequently offer close-to-home help without the disturbance that close connections can involve. The shortfall of heartfelt show implies that these kinships can offer a tranquil friendship, which is favorable to keeping up with the inward quiet and level-headed concentration that aloofness trains us to develop. The opportunity that accompanies dispassionate connections is exceptionally valued in emotionlessness, which educates autonomy and independence. These connections regard individual limits also, individual pursuits permitting one to lock in profoundly when together, however, giving space for individual reflection and development when separated. This equilibrium is great for the people who focus on self-improvement furthermore, philosophical uprightness, which can once in a while be more difficult to keep up with in the close-to-home scene of a close connection for the individuals who live by indifferent standards. Life isn't simply about following a foreordained way, be that as it may, about manufacturing one's own driven by private convictions. What's more, exceptional yearnings. This frequently prompts objectives that stray from cultural standards, be they in the domains of vacation way of life or self-awareness. Apathy educates us the significance of living in agreement with our own temperament and standards. For some, this implies devoting themselves to unusual pursuits that probably won't adjust well to the normal assumptions for a relationship, whether it's devoting life to a creative undertaking that requires sporadic timetables also, extraordinary times of isolation, or on the other hand, focusing on helpful aims in remote of the world. These pursuits request a degree of responsibility that can be hard to accommodate with the requests of an ordinary close connection. The unemotional qualities independence. What's more, the pursuit of individual ideals regardless of anything else, for those who are driven by remarkable objectives, this can frequently intend that the way to individual satisfaction doesn't really incorporate a conventional organization. Their objectives require an adaptability. What's more, a level of self-concentration that may be troublesome to keep up with in a relationship where split the difference also, shared independent direction, are vital emotionlessness. Likewise shows the control of one's own predetermination. Furthermore, for some, this control is best practiced performance, permitting them to submerge completely in their interests without interruption. Besides, emotionlessness advances the thought of lack of interest to outside conclusions and cultural tensions, which engages those with capricious objectives to seek after their interests without looking for approval or then again endorsement from others. This philosophical backing upholds the thought that one doesn't have to stick to cultural assumptions for marriage, or on the other hand connections, to carry on with a satisfied existence. All things considered, satisfaction comes from chasing after furthermore, accomplishing objectives that are adjusted with one's most profound qualities. Furthermore, convictions, the emotionless pursuit of serenity and inward harmony, frequently adjusts better to a way of life that focuses on individual pursuits over shared ones. The inward feeling of harmony that comes from following one's enthusiasm without settling for less or interference is important to those whose all-consuming purpose lies outside of what might be expected. This peacefulness is much of the time more attainable in the lucidity also. Isolation of singlehood, where the main assumptions to meet are one's own apathy, supports us to utilize our previous encounters not as anchors that keep us down yet, as examples that move us forward, for the majority past connections have given significant experiences into the main thing in their lives. What's more, how they wish to live these encounters, whether they include tragedy, disloyalty, or just the acknowledgement that their ways were wandering from those of their accomplices, act as urgent learning minutes. They offer clear examples on the sorts of connections. What's more, elements that don't work well for them. Furthermore, feature the significance of being consistent with oneself for those directed by emotionless standards. Each experience is a chance for development. Past connections frequently instruct about the requirement for similarity, not simply on shallow levels, be that as it may. On more profound philosophical grounds, they discover that valid friendship requires more than just shared interests. It requests a common point of view, which is an acknowledgement that can frequently lead them to pick singlehood. This decision isn't tied in with staying away from the gamble of agony, be that as it may, about embracing a day-to-day existence that completely lines up with their apathetic values, esteems that underline reasonableness, independence, and close-to-home flexibility. Moreover, previous encounters can uncover how profoundly connections influence one's inner serenity. What's more, close-to-home dependability. Aloofness instructs the significance of keeping a peaceful brain liberated from the aggravations that can emerge from conflicting or, on the other hand, undesirable connections. The individuals who pick singlehood after such encounters frequently do as such to safeguard their inward harmony, which they've learned is all the more effortlessly kept up with in a condition of freedom. This doesn't mean they close themselves off from affection, or then again friendship for eternity. Yet, they become more specific, guaranteeing any future connections. Line up with their life's theory and objectives, also aloofness. Advocates for the acknowledgement of things we can't change. What's more, figuring out how to adjust to life conditions with elegance and backbone. Gaining from previous encounters frequently implies perceiving when it's wise to transform one's methodology to connections out and out, picking singlehood as a type of strengthening. What's more, a confirmation to their ability for self-development and variation. Aloofness educates the worth of independence, also tracking down satisfaction inside oneself. Isolation in this way is seen not similarly as an actual state B, that as it may, as a psychological and profound space where one can lock in profoundly with their viewpoints, ponder their life's bearing. Furthermore, develop internal excellencies without the interruptions frequently presented by steady, friendly communication for the people who track down satisfaction in isolation. This time alone is fundamental for keeping up with their psychological clearness close to home equilibrium. Furthermore, philosophical uprightness in isolation. Stoics track down the opportunity to investigate their contemplations and feelings inside and out to grasp their real essence. What's more, to adjust their activities all the more intimately with their qualities. This arrangement is vital, as aloofness puts high significance on carrying on with a day-to-day existence that is compatible with one's moral convictions. Isolation permits for a sort of contemplation that is unhampered by the prompt requests of others, giving the space to survey one's decisions. Basically also, plan one's future activities in light of late consideration instead of incautious sentiments. In addition, the calm of isolation is frequently seen as a safe haven from the clamor of the world. At these times of calm, the people who love isolation discover a significant feeling of harmony that can be subtle in the hustle of ordinary social associations. They relish the amazing chance to participate in exercises that give them individual pleasure, also fulfillment, whether it's understanding composition, contemplating, or on the other hand, enjoying side interests that require focus. What's more, quiet, these exercises are not simply interests B that, as it may, are fundamental parts of their apathetic practice, supporting the development of individual temperances like tolerance, tirelessness, and care. The delight of isolation likewise broadens to the enthusiasm for nature. Furthermore, the outer world from a position of calm perception, which is an unmistakably unemotional practice, noticing the world without the need to connect with it continually, can prompt a more profound appreciation of life's excellence. What's more, a more prominent comprehension of one's place inside it. This viewpoint is appreciated by those who track down satisfaction in isolation, as it supports their sense of association with the world from a perspective of smart consideration as opposed to dynamic commitment. As we finish up the present excursion through the significant decisions that shape a Stoic's way to isolation, recollect embracing singlehood isn't just about being separated from everyone else. It's tied in with being finished inside oneself, outfitted with the ethics that characterize a really satisfied life. Thank you for going along with us. Furthermore, captivating with these reflections at Unemotional Diary on the off chance that this conversation impacted you. Consider investigating more by watching one of the proposed recordings on your screen. Much obliged to you for being a piece of this local area where we reveal the strength in isolation.